Hey everybody, welcome to Bones Collector. I've got an exciting game to talk about today called Valparaiso. Now, Valparaiso is a city on the Chilean coast, and it came out in 2018. The designers are Louis and Stefan Maltz, and the art is done by Michael Menzel, and I just love the art in this game. I'll talk about it for a minute, but the board is very pretty. You know, it has a feel of a coastal city, the way it's drawn and printed on the board. It's just very, very attractive. And even the box lid here with you know, the ship coming into port and the little girl telling her papa that the beer has arrived, and he's very excited, I'm sure, as she is. But it's I really like the art in this game, and it's a lot of fun to play. We picked this up at a sidewalk sale, and it's been in my closet here for about a month, but we finally got it to the table today, and I want to talk about it a little bit. First of all, let's talk about the components of the game. The board is nice and thick and lays flat. That's important to me. It has a fairly sturdy box from Stronghold Games, so they did a good job there. The money tokens are very thick. I mean, these are pesos, 10 pesos, and they're very thick, and you get various denominations, and they're nice thick tokens. Player boards are thick. You get a nice there's a lighthouse for a first player token. That's pretty cool. Wooden meeples and chips, wooden cubes for your resources. Card stock is very good. There's small cards. The iconography is very clear. These benefit tiles are you know, nice, easy to read and use. So yeah, I really like everything about the components of the game. So that's that. Let's get to something that's not so good, and that's the rule book. The rule book has some issues. It explains how to set the game up. The print is nice and big, which is always good, but it has a mistake in it, a couple actually, when it talks about the game end, and I want to make you aware of that, because if you play this game, it's a huge mistake in here. And this is what it says: if a player has at least 18 victory points, which this is the point track, on the scoring track, the game ends immediately. It uses the word immediately. So I would take that to mean when someone lands on number 18 points, the game ends immediately, wouldn't you? It does not mean that. And the second sentence says the game also ends immediately if at least one C sector, that's these C sectors up here, there's 3 of them, if at least one C sector slot for achievement cards is empty and can no longer be refilled. If this deck has disappeared and you can't refill it, the book says the game ends immediately. Well, we got on the FAQ because there was some question about that, and the designer, who was it, Stefan Maltz, said that is a mistake in the rule book, that it does not end immediately, because in the rule book it says at the end of the round you check to see if anybody has satisfied those 2 endgame triggers, and then and only then do you start endgame scoring. But you finish the round. It does not end immediately. So I just want to make everybody aware of that problem is in the rule book. But that doesn't stop it from being a beautiful game, because this is a really cool game. And first thing I wanted to cover was the player mat that you use. And it's got a place for an extra merchant that you can add later as the game goes on. It's on the coast here, so it has your ship that you're going to load with goods and come up here to the seaports and get these achievement cards. And it has 4 places for houses here that you're going to build on this map in Valparaiso and in these trading spaces in the villages. So on your player board also is another kind of minor problem that I have with the game, and that's it has you can sell at any time during your turn. It has iconography here. You can sell a cube for 3 pesos, $3, and you can do that anytime during your turn. But in the same square, it has a picture of 20 pesos for a victory point. Well, you can't do that anytime. That's only in the end game. Whatever money you have left over, you can purchase victory points for 20 pesos a piece. And so that's kind of misleading. They shouldn't have put it in the same square, I don't think. So that's kind of misleading also. And then also on your player mat, it has the spaces 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for your cards that you're going to program. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then on the one side here, it has a 6 space that you can use called the Mayor House, and I'll talk about that also. So that's your player mat that you're going to use. This is a programming game. So everybody starts out with 8 cards. When you come up here and buy these cards, they go into your deck. So it's, geez, I guess it's a little bit of a deck builder, but really the main mechanic is programming. So what you're going to do when you take your turn is you're going to program your cards around your player mat. Let me get this back here. And lay them down such, like this. And you start out only allowed to use 4 until you build all 4 of these houses over here, and that opens up a 5th space. So for right now, and I don't have any houses here, I'll put my yellow houses up here. So you would start the game out with these 4 houses sitting there, and once you build the first 2, that 5th space opens up for you. And you can put a 5th card there in your programming line. Then, if you want to use another space, this is called the Mayor space, you can put another card there, but it's going to cost you 5 pesos. So you put that 5 pesos on the card, and when you play that card during the course of your turn, you take that pesos and put it in the bank, in the supply. So that's how the programming works. Once you've chosen your programming, all players flip their cards over like this. And you do that for a reason, because you want to see what your opponents are up to. So you would flip all these cards over, and now everybody can see what you're planning to do. And the reason why that's important is you have to play these cards in order during your turn. I'll play a card, next player will play a card, next player will play a card, and you just go around until everybody's played one. Then you'll play, once you play one, you slide them down, and you start taking turns again until all your cards are depleted. You can play this at any time during your turn. Now as these cards slide down, that's very important, because on your player mat it has some costs above each one of the spaces. Maybe you made a mistake in your planning, or maybe somebody else on their turn they did something that messes with the plan that you had. So you're going to want to play out of order of the way you laid the cards, and it has a cost above if you want to do that. If you want to play this one next, it's going to cost you 2 pesos. So there's a little bit of a penalty, not that bad, but you can play these out of order by paying, and you are forced to do that at times if, again, if your opponents, the other people on playing the game, do something to mess with the plans that you had in your head. So that's the way that works. You have to think very hard about the things you want to do. And more than once I messed up my programming because I would move my ship before I had it loaded or something really silly. And so you end up having to compensate by maybe taking, and I didn't say it, but on each one of these cards there's a main action and an alternative action. So if you mess up your programming and you don't want to pay extra, you can take the alternative action, which is usually a resource or 2 resources or 5 pesos, something like that. So there's 2 things on each card that you can do. This card, for instance, says that I can load cubes into my ship. Now on my player mat I showed you have 6 spaces for cargo on your ship, and if you fill all 6 of those spaces you get a victory point. It's right on your player mat. So it's important that, I think, that when you do load that ship, you load it to the brim. That way you get that victory point and you're more efficient with your turn. And so that's what that card means. And then this, you would load your ship with cubes that you acquire in the trading spaces in the villages. So you're moving merchants around, getting cubes, and I'll talk about that in a second. But once you load that ship, then you'll want to move that ship, and that's what this card does. You can move 2 spaces for free. You can go to any of these ports with 2 spaces, and the 2 spaces can also move you back. So you can get to anywhere on the board moving your ship too. And then once you move up here, if you've got a loaded vessel, this card lets you unload the ship. And when you unload that ship, you can choose one of these achievement cards. They have victory points on them, and they also give you a special action of some sort. This one, every time you play it, you get 10 pesos. This card, you get 2 cubes of unequal color. So you'd have to take one of white and one of orange, that kind of thing. They have to be different. But they have various benefits on them, and again, the most important thing is the victory points. because this is a race to 18 and you're inching along on that scoring track. This card you can hire, you get an extra merchant on your player mat. Before you start the game, you start with 2 on the board and then 1 on your mat, and this card allows you to hire that merchant and put him in Valparaiso, and that's important because you'll need that merchant. Okay, and then there's a card that moves your merchants, and you can move 1 space for free, the card says. And then if you remove a second space, it's 1 pesos. If you move 3 spaces, it's 4 pesos. So very expensive to move three spaces with this card. So that's a movement card. And then this is your trading space card. So you would go to one of the trading spaces here at one of Villages. There's 4 of them. This one is a reserve, and it has a very cool mechanic when you're doing this action. Now the mechanic of the game calls for, once you use one of these tiles, it falls off the bottom of the column, and then you push them down like that, and then this one comes up into the reserve at the top, and you push it down, and you take the one off the bottom and put it on the top of the trading space that you used. It's a pretty cool mechanic, and I've seen it kind of in Otis. I don't know if you've ever played that game, but it's really cool and it works kind of like that. But that's every time you trade, every time you use a tile, you have to do that mechanic. But that's the trading card. And then this card, for any cube you sacrifice, you get 10 pesos. One of them is build a house action, and it simply costs 10 pesos. It's to build a house in Valparaiso or one of the villages. So those are your 8 action cards that you get in this deck, and it's a beautiful game. I mean, I'm a Euro gamer. I love this kind of game. The board is very small and I enjoy that. It's all front and center. You can see everything going on, and the complexity of the game is very deep. There's more than meets the eye here in Valparaiso. I really like this game. You really have to think about the things you're doing. If you put one of your houses in Valparaiso right here, at the end of every round you get the benefit of that square for free. So, and I was the first one to put a house here. At the end of every round, I got $3 right from the start of the game. And then you also get a bonus. If you have more houses in the Valparaiso area, you get a 5 peso bonus, and the player that comes in second, who has the second most houses there, gets a 2 peso bonus. So there's reasons for everything that you plant on this board. And everything has a consequence. And that's what makes a beautiful, beautiful game. We've really enjoyed this game. It was, again, when we first set it up, I thought, well, this looks easy. And I went over the rules, and it sounded pretty easy. And I thought, well, there wasn't going to be much there. But boy, when we started to play, it really got deep. And I can see this game being crazy with 3 and 4 players. It was a lot of fun with 2. Don't get me wrong. We're going to keep it. And I really like it playing at 2. But it's a beautiful game at 2. It's a lot of fun to play. We had a great time with it. I think it's one of the best games I've played in a while. But I like everything about it. The small footprint, the game mechanics, they're beautifully thought out. And it's up to you as a player to weave them together with your intellect to try to score points as fast as you can. Because at the end of the round, if somebody has 18 or one of these card sections cannot be refilled, it's time to end the game and do the final scoring. So yeah, that's Valparaiso. It's a great game. I would highly recommend this game from 2018. And oh yeah, one thing I want to talk about. Oh, thank you. As you get better at this game, there's even something else that they add to make the tension worse, and that's this timer. Because it's a programming game, you have to sit and think about how you want your turn to go. And what's worse than having a limited time to do it? And that's what this is for. And the way that works is everybody's got their deck of programming cards, and somebody says go, and you start going through those cards and programming your board as to how you want your turn to go. And the first one done grabs this timer, turns it upside down, and everybody else has 60 seconds to finish their programming. Now, the player that turned that timer up to start the 60 seconds, you get an extra resource cube of your choice to put in your warehouse. So it behooves you to be the first one done. That's That's a pretty cool mechanic. I like that. Because again, when you're trying to program something, you're going over in your head, let's see, I want to go there. You know, you got your deck of cards, I want to go there, I want to get this done. And more than once, I mean, I wasn't even under the gun, and I made a mistake in my programming. I said, whoops, you know, I moved my ship before I filled it. That's really dumb, right? If I was under the pressure of the timer, I could see it being a lot more intense, and that's what makes great games. You have to have some tension there, and this timer supplies that. So yeah, I wanted to make sure I talked about that. But that's Valparaiso, you guys. It's a great game. You'll have a lot of fun playing it, but make sure you like. Please subscribe to the channel. I love every one of you. I think I'm up to 145 subscribers now. Yay! And keep on board gaming. It's the best hobby on the planet. Later on, I'll see you next time on Bones Collector. Bye-bye.